Hi, this is Ed Fitzpatrick. If you enjoy local politics as much as I do, be sure to join our friends at Rhode Island PBS for the show A Lively Experiment. Hosted by Jim Hummel, the weekly series features journalists, pundits, and politicians debating the stories and issues that matter most to us Rhode Islanders. Tune in to A Lively Experiment and be part of the conversation. Fridays at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS and wherever you get your podcasts. From the Boston Globe, this is Rhode Island Report. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. Welcome back to the podcast where we bring you big conversations from our very small state. On Thanksgiving Day, the Globe published an article about a Rhode Island man named Patrick Fealey. He's a former journalist who wrote about his experiences with homelessness in Esquire magazine. A Narragansett family tracked him down and found him a place to live. His story has gone viral, generating an overwhelming response and helping push his GoFundMe page to over $163,000. Patrick Fealey is here to tell us more about his story and the response he has received. Patrick Fealey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
A lot has happened since we talked a couple of weeks ago for the first time. There's been an amazing response to the story about your experience with homelessness. Before we talk about that, though, for people who aren't familiar with your story, you grew up in Rhode Island and wrote for a series of publications, including the Boston Globe. But then when you were 29, you woke up and something was different. Can you describe what that moment was like and how it changed your life?
Yes. I woke up and it was a new world and it was dark. Everything around me agitated me. It was so bad I couldn't look at wallpaper. I was looking at the white walls thinking, what am I going to do?
What was the diagnosis?
The diagnosis was bipolar 1 rapid cycling. My cycle was completed in 6 days. So high you think you can win the presidency on Monday without running. Everyone knows you, everyone loves you. And then the next day you're normal and you feel normally functioning, but then the third day you are in hell. Wow. You are, catatonic, you want to die. If you could move, you'd kill yourself. And the next day you're normal, and then you're back up. And it's like excruciating to go through that.
Oh, yeah. How did your life change after you received that diagnosis?
For 6 months, I couldn't read or write. I lost that, and my memory was gone. All I could do was pray that I could read again, I began seeing a psychiatrist, and we worked out a cocktail that worked. It took about a month, and then I was pretty good. I was not high functioning at all, but I could function. The writing came back in about 6 months, and reading came back first. Well, I could no longer work. I was able to get Social Security disability, and there were rooming houses in Newport and Narragansett. I would live there and just write. And for 27 years, I did that.
What happened there where you ended up leaving the apartment in Westerly and living in your car? What was the event?
Before Westerly, I was supported by a patron of the arts. Then I met a woman and we moved to Westerly. The patron of the arts decided that he wasn't going to support me anymore. And then she said, don't worry about it. What's mine is yours. So I thought, okay, but I need to find a source of income. But within 2 months, she was packing. I was homeless for a little more than a year. And I started in Westerly. I was at a beach down there for maybe a couple of weeks, and then the police chased me to Walmart parking lot. And they said it was okay to park there, and I did. And I was there for a couple of months. Then Walmart chased me, and I really had little places to go in Westerly, so I went to an old Benny's parking lot.
During this time when you were living in your car, you were writing the Esquire article, right? It ended up being 9,000 words. Tell us about how you did that.
I was working on a novel, and then when I got done with that, I would start writing about what happened that day.
Yeah.
Basically chronicling the experience, and I was thinking maybe a literary magazine would publish it. It got to 22,000 words.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Some of it's narrative, some of it's just thoughts.
How did you connect with Esquire to get that article published?
It goes back to the days of the Narragansett Times, and there was a reporter named Chris Chivers who was working for the Journal. And, we'd see each other. Remember, we were covering the same towns.
Yeah, Chris is a great guy, great writer for the New York Times now. So, and lives in Rhode Island. And you connected with him, and he steered you toward
Esquire.
Esquire.
Yeah, that took a while for Esquire. It took months, actually, to get it. To the editor-in-chief of Esquire, he was pivotal to getting it published because he liked it. I think that he had a lot of guts to do it because it's not something you typically see in that magazine. But he liked it, and he wanted to publish it. He was excited. At one point in the article, you wrote about how you went to get some dental work for your teeth or hurting you, and had a bad experience. Would you mind reading a quick excerpt from that piece? No, I'll do it. The dentist came in and sat behind me. He said nothing. I couldn't see him. Was he going to examine me? He finally wheeled over on his chair. He was holding the familiar sharp metal hook. He didn't ask what the problem was. I told him about the 2 teeth on the lower left. He said nothing. He didn't make eye contact. He approached with the tool. I opened my mouth. He looked, touched one lower left tooth very quickly and lightly. He didn't test for a cavity. He didn't check any other teeth. You have tartar buildup, but I don't see anything, he said. The pain is severe, I said. I don't know why, he said. He wheeled away and turned his back to me again and looked at a computer. He said, the x-ray doesn't show anything. No cavities, I said. No cavities, no abscess. Look, he said. I turned to see. The x-ray showed one white tooth and an ocean of black. It was an upper tooth. I was too deranged by excruciating pain to ask him to do more before he began to conclude the examination. Finally, I said, do you see the swelling on my face? No, he said. I raised my voice and said, you don't? Maybe a little, he said. My left jaw was twice the size of my right. I realized the problem. He believed I was drug seeking. Yeah, in reading your piece in Esquire, I was stunned by how most people treated you with a lot of disdain. There were some people who were kind, right? But overall, what was the reaction of others? Well, they quickly could see that I was homeless because they would see me around, and when you're out there, your clothes just get baggy and dirty. So I could not keep my hair, neat. So it became obvious, and people mostly wanted to avoid me. It was mostly fear, I would say. They were afraid. The stereotype that homeless people are criminals or violent, or on drugs and stuff like that just creates a fear. We'll have more with Patrick Fealey after a quick break. When you want to go beyond the headlines, let me recommend Rhode Island PBS Weekly. Rhode Island PBS Weekly is an award-winning news magazine broadcast that gives you the full story, powered by investigative journalism and narrative storytelling. New episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly drop Sundays at 7:30 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Watch past episodes at ripbs.org/weekly. That's ripbs.org/weekly. The Esquire article ran on November 14th, and after that you heard from the Matthews family, Bill and Janice, who live in Narragansett. Tell us how you ended up hearing from them. One night we were at the URI Oceanography Beach. Lane got a text. Lane McDonald is your girlfriend, right? Yes. Yeah, she lives in Narragansett. Yes. We looked at it and we didn't know who it was, but it said, please call me. So we called him, and he basically said he wanted to help and he wanted to put us up, like right away. Wow. And he did. That night he put us up in the Holiday Inn. They set up a GoFundMe page. That GoFundMe page, I noticed, and we're talking on December 5th, it had $162,790 in it. What's your response to that? I don't know. So what will you do with that? What will you do with those resources? Make them last. As long as I can. I've lived in places where I've, stretched out the money as long as possible. The last time when I had a patron, $200,000 I made the last 4 years in Wakefield. And it was tough because the average income there is like over 100. It was pretty lean, but I did it. I stretched out the money and I'm going to do that again.
You find an apartment?
Yes.
And you're going to stay in Rhode Island, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking in Wakefield again.
What would you say to all the people who donated to the GoFundMe page and otherwise came out to support you?
It's kind of humbling and makes me speechless, that people would do that. It's unprecedented in my life that somebody would do that.
What did you think of what the Matthews did?
That is a miracle. They came out of nowhere. It's so reassuring. They made me comfortable and are helping in many ways with Medicare, with dentists. They're helping arrange things.
Oh, is that right? Are you getting dental care
for
those teeth?
I'm seeing a dentist next week.
Oh, that's great. And what do you plan to do in the months and years ahead?
Just write. Keep writing. Esquire wants more stories.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I've actually been contacted by 2 literary agents interested in a homeless book and the novels.
Yeah, tell us about your novels, because you've been writing novels for years, right?
Yes. I wrote my first one when I was a junior in college, and I've been working on that same one forever.
You've already published one novel, right?
Yes, but I've gone back to that novel and rewritten it and added 300 pages. So it's a different book now. And if anyone's out there, don't buy that one.
It seems like throughout your life, no matter how hard things were, you turned to writing. Why is that?
I don't know. It's a possession, but it's also the creative process alleviates pain. When I'm writing, I don't feel the pain. I think that is translated into the stories where people read them, and it kind of helps them too. For me, it's if I stop for 2 days, I start to feel sick and uncomfortable, agitated, and it's not good. So I have to do it. It's physical and mental.
What's the main thing you hope people take away from that Esquire article?
Just an awareness of the problem and that it's moving into the working poor, and that if something's not done, more people that don't expect to be homeless may be.
What should people know about homelessness and mental health that they might not know if they haven't gone through it themselves?
I would say that one thing that they need to know is that there are very few resources. The extent of the support that I received was $160 in food stamps. When I asked an agency for help with gas and food, they said nothing. That was a surprising experience to be turned down by an agency that is funded by the government and donations.
What do you think the state or private agencies could do that they're not doing now?
Well, the state of California did that experiment where they gave homeless people cash to see what they would do with it. And overwhelmingly, they found housing.
Oh, that's right. California offered, I think it was 100 homeless people in the Bay Area and Los Angeles County, $750 a month. And it found that participants overwhelmingly used that cash to cover food, housing, and transportation. So what's the takeaway there?
It might be a better solution than affordable housing because it gives them freedom to choose where they live.
Yeah. Critics of the programs like that always say, well, the money will be wasted on people spending on alcohol or drugs. What do you say to that?
I guess a minority did that. Some people, they're used to the street and drinking is more important, but that's a minority in that study.
The Supreme Court decision, I think it was in June, gave local communities the ability to move out homeless encampments on public property. What did you think of that decision?
I think that you can't just move people because they're still going to be here. You can't deny them ground. If you deny them ground, basically you're denying them existence. And it's sort of like, all right, attempted murder. If I deny your existence, that's trying to kill you, right? People would rather do that than see them or help them. And the Supreme Court, it enabled the police to do what they did. They felt bold and confident with me. And it was a fight a lot of the time. I heard about the Supreme Court decision after my experience, and now it makes sense that they were emboldened, by that, and that they were probably worse than they would have been.
Yeah. What would you say to listeners about what they should do or think the next time they see someone who's homeless at an intersection or on the street in Rhode Island?
Well, I would give them the benefit of the doubt and think that they're a normal, good person. They're not a criminal. They're like a lot of people something happened that was unfortunate that they probably didn't have control over that led them to that position, and just, treat them with empathy and kindness.
But you talked about how you didn't get a lot of empathy and kindness. What is it, do you think people assume or think that leads them to show that kind of disdain?
Well, in the story I talk about, the responses of the money and the responses of, the average citizen. Some people won't look at us because they create us. People who take more than they need create disparity. Then there are the average people who look at us and they're 2 weeks away from being homeless themselves, if they lose their job or if they have medical bills. So they don't want to think about it because it's just too horrific to them because they're so close to it. So you get rejection from everybody. It's just easy to, just look away.
So you're a writer. So if you could write right now the ending, tell us the next chapter of your life, what it'll look like.
I can only tell you based on what's happening right now, like the last couple of days, it looks like the work that I've been doing for the last 27 years, writing, and with the vision of finally getting out there, that is coming true. The homeless thing was not expected to be the breakthrough, but the agents that have called me are interested in the homeless book and novels.
Well, Patrick Fealey, good luck, and thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you. You're welcome.
Rhode Island Report is a production of the Boston Globe in collaboration with Rhode Island PBS. Today's episode was produced by Megan Hall. Audio mixing and mastering by Marissa Ewing of Hemlock Creek Productions. Our music is from APM. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. See you next week. Looking to binge watch all your favorite PBS shows? You need Rhode Island PBS Passport. Masterpiece, Antiques Roadshow, Rhode Island PBS Weekly, and many more. Watch them all, anytime, and from any streaming device. Learn more about this member benefit at ripbs.org/passport. That's ripbs.org/passport.